Welcome everyone to the Tuesday, April 3rd, 2019 Working Group Component Standard meeting. We have a few agenda items today, but it looks like Lei isn't here, and I think he added those. So I'm going to say let's punt most of those to next week, so he can be here for that. And then there's only one more, which I added, which is the first legacy flag PR. But before we do that, I was wondering if you guys have anything you want to talk about.
I'm just like listening here.
Okay, cool. So I'll take a look at that PR then. So what this is sort of the first version, if you will, of the legacy flag library, kind of an example of what a more complete version of it would look like, and how that would work. I looked through the comments. It seemed like, there's a few comments on the code gen for how to detect GoPath and deal with that properly, that those make sense, and just some general cleanup. One comment on naming that, we can figure out. I can come up with some more options, and we can hash that out offline. But most of these look pretty simple. Does anyone have any other concerns with it, or any other kind of comments on the overall structure or framework of it?
So who are the owners for Legacy FWAC at the moment?
I think it's API Machinery. I think that's where we homed the component standard work in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe we should ping them for review as well.
Oh, that's a good point. Yep, I can add them. That's a good point.
I only quickly read the CAP for Legacy flag. Unfortunately, I didn't have the time, but can you summarize like what is the purpose exactly?
Yeah, so there's a few, when people try to do component config and do the migration, it usually happens that they can't just do it all at once. And so then you need to do this incremental migration from flags to config. And even if you did it all at once, you'd still need to maintain that command line for some period of time, just due to the deprecation policy. And that makes a few things challenging around maintaining that backwards compatibility when you actually parse the flags. And so the purpose of legacy flag is to kind of clean up the flag parsing by letting you register flags in a way that they get parsed into a scratch space, and then you can apply them out of that scratch space whenever you want and wherever you want. So you're not forced to copy those values into your config at the same time that you parse them. And the reason that's important is because the way that you kind of implement that backwards compatibility is that you have to have the flags take precedence over the config, which means that like you're going to load a config file and then parse flags into it. But because there's other flags that aren't in the config yet, you had to parse the flags before you loaded the config files. Now you're in the business of parsing the flags twice in the current model. And when you do that, you have to do other things to be careful that you aren't reparsing any global flags from third-party libraries, because you don't know what those flags do. You don't know how they behave across multiple parses. You also have to be careful if there are first-party flags that are like accumulators where multiple invocations add to the structure, so that you don't reparse those in the wrong way. And so it gets really complicated. And we think we can make it a lot easier by just having a structure where you only parse the flags once, and then you have all the values accessible to you that you can apply arbitrarily after that point. So that's one goal of this. And then the other goal is there's some other helpers in here for dealing with global flags, and that I think have been duplicated in other areas of the code base now. So those are the main reasons. I think there's some other details in the CAP as well, if you go look at that.
Yeah, I see. It makes a lot of sense, definitely. But so today, somebody raised the point that PFWAC, when you have a flag that is deprecated PFWAC by default prints the deprecation message to standard error. And this is like KWalk pipes this to, does not pipe this to the WOG file. Actually, it was Justin Santa Barbara that pointed this out. So,
oh, is that because it prints directly to standard error? It doesn't, right? It's not going to go through KLog.
yeah, it's not piped. So currently, we don't have a mechanic to print the deprecation message to the WOG files, to my understanding. Maybe that's another point.
I need to look at the kubelet because I often see deprecation notices in kubelet logs. So I need, it may be that the way we have, it may be the way we have logging set up. Oh, hey, Lay. The way we have logging set up for the kubelet in production is like streaming standard error somewhere, and so we're just seeing it anyway. Yeah, but people who use the file-based logging options on Klog, yeah, I can see how that could be a problem.
Yeah, I'm going to share the link in the agenda to the ticket.
Yeah, please add that. Yeah, please add that link. Lay, you have some agenda items here if you want to jump into those.
Yeah, these are definitely worth noting. The Codec Factory options one is a continuation of the work for the strict decoder. That Codec Factory is necessary to produce universal decoders that do fall through and defaulting logic, which is useful for when decoding config files. My primary concern with this is that this idea of using with options as an extension to the existing constructor name so that we don't break the interfaces. And then also passing a struct, right, which has to be instantiated, that then is not also called like something options. It makes the incantation for creating a Codec Factory really complicated, because then you are Codec Factory with options scheme, and then you have to you have to construct an object with like Codec Factory options.
I guess what I would ask about that is do you think that complexity is superfluous? Or given the number of options that we have or will have in the future, will it become more complex to have a million constructors lying around?
Yeah, after I worked with it, and considering how many times Serializer and Codec Factor have changed, I don't really see the argument that people were making that we were going to have to maintain two times n constructors. I think
that was an apocalyptic argument, in my opinion.
Yeah, it wasn't even the right multiples either.
2 to the n is crazy, but even n would be kind of a lot, right?
It is n, right? Because it's not like we're trying to maintain JSON YAML serializers, right? That are combined.
Yeah, I mean we have 2 options right now, right? Pretty and strict.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so that's
well, and then
if every option's a binary option, and you have a constructor per option combination, it's not 2 to the n because you'd at least pass.
Yeah, and it makes it even in some ways more awkward because now I have to document what pretty does when it doesn't make sense.
No, I think the argument is conflating with already existing pretty FWAC, which is technically a variation of what you can have as a serializer. And also it's not technically a serializer, it's just something that can be used for JSON decoding, right? Or was it the other way around?
Codec Factory will give, so the universal decoder will return you a collection of serializers that's casted properly. But a decoder is a serializer.
Yeah, my point was that pretty was only useful for the JSON case and when you basically write a JSON file as a structure.
Yes, that is correct.
So it's not useful when it doesn't make sense for YAML, and also it's the toggle, the binary toggle here is not useful when you put JSON in a structure. So it's kind of,
It's not. It doesn't map cleanly.
it doesn't make sense, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can get, for codec vector, you can probably just have strict as the only option that we propose in the beginning. That makes sense to me.
It is like, yeah, I mean, it's attractive to me to have one constructor and not have to have more than one.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this was Lovelock's suggestion. Liget had initially, when we did the design work, he and Lucas were just making more constructors, and that's what was some of the initial like feedback we got on the original JSON PRs was to do it this way. So
yeah, I like this way personally because it just, you don't end up. It's very clear when you go to extended exactly what you have to do, and you're not going to ever get into a style argument over.
yes, you're never going to call the wrong constructor as long as you don't call one of our constructors that's now marked as deprecated.
Right. Yeah. And you just have to be careful about extending the API backwards compatibly, which is already something we worry about all the time. So
yeah, I was on the API machinery like bug triage call like yesterday, and they were reviewing quite a few like patches that actually do break like the binary compatibility of those Golang packages.
mm-hmm.
So we don't like apparently have a versioning story around like runtime.
No, we don't. And it's mostly because things live still in this mono repo or in staging repos where it's not an issue for most things.
Yeah, JSON and runtime are in staging, but now that we have Go modules, apparently I think we're gonna start thinking about this stuff. So
yeah, we'll see what happens.
It makes my patches easier to review if it doesn't break anything. So
yeah. Then you don't have changes all over the place that are unrelated.
Yeah, and I can do follow-ups later, right, to clean things up in the 400 places they need to be cleaned up.
Right.
But yeah, that makes it really hard to get stuff merged.
Do you want us to go over this PR, the comments we have, and to attempt to unblock it?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Thanks.
So I think I made a comment about that we should add more details. I mean, if API machinery wants the pretty flag to be as is, we should probably document where, like, in which cases it makes sense, because this is a visible comment in Godox. This is my first comment. I mean, it's kind of clear, but the other one is something that Stuart brought up. That's the that we always have to create the pretty serializer, and basically, that's my impression when I looked at the code, that we create it even if we don't ever use it. And like, what is your opinion here?
Like, I would think you wouldn't need the pretty serializer if you were not trying to do pretty encoding. But where that argument falls apart is I haven't checked. I've read this code before, and it's kind of complicated. It's when the codecs for version are constructed. So like that's total jargon. But when you need to like hydrate the serializers from just like a collection of structs that you've initialized and constructed into serializers that actually perform defaulting logic, that happens in the universal decoder function. It like does magic. in the encoding package. And it's not easy to trace, but basically something in there is going to do that JSON pretty stuff. And it's not contained within this package. So that abstraction is like hidden somewhere else, which is a code smell.
I think I found this, but I forgot what was the name of. So the CRI protocol it uses. What was the name? It uses in the backend in JSON.
Yeah, it's in there. I just haven't read it for a second, and like getting a new laptop today because this thing keeps crashing when I try to read code.
I know what you're talking about, but I forgot. Oh, never mind.
And I'll look at that bit. I think I'm starting to like the pretty portion of this abstraction. It's just like really weird. I kind of threw it in there because I was like, well, it can't just have one option, but that's, yeah. But yeah, then maybe just one option.
The thing we care about most is the strict decoder with this, at least as far as config work, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we can focus on that.
Yeah, if I gut it, it'll be simpler to review anyway. So.
Yeah, and or at least split them into two separate PRs in that way. Talk about each independently.
I'm gonna need to. I should probably modify the test harness to exercise the strict codec factory.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, I'll have to dig in there because that's gonna be gnarly.
Thank you. We really appreciate how you work on this stuff.
It's very painful, but it's been a good learning experience for sure. Like I never imagined how sticky these problems would be.
Very sticky.
And it's so slow moving. Like you're just reading thousands of lines of code and like merging a patch every week and a half.
Yeah. So the pretty JSON is used for gRPC, if I remember correctly. And the abstraction, like you said, is kind of hidden somewhere.
Are you?
Why would where is the pretty JSON used for gRPC? Is that just for like debugging gRPC?
I have no idea. That's my memory basically. I might be wrong here.
Are you talking about the proto serializer, which is a different package?
Oh, sorry. I'm talking about the proto buffer.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what's nice is at least that all that stuff is not in the JSON package, which means that all of these abstractions that I'm creating now, I should probably go read that stuff again and see how alien the interfaces we're creating look in comparison.
But then again, you should probably just, as long as API machinery is happy with the PR in terms of, hey, we want this, and maybe we should just roll with the work and merge PRs instead of digging deep in this because it's kind of complicated. And so people like Jordan and Clayton have expressed that we shouldn't probably like dig into this and change stuff. So as long as Stefan and Jordan are happy with this, we should just continue the work, and move forward.
That makes sense to me as well. Yeah, if it's definitely worth making sure this stuff is better tested in a follow-up if you'd like to do that. But yes, if API machinery is okay with merging this as it is, then let's make it harder on ourselves.
Yeah, and I'm fine to create follow-up issues just as long as we never lose track of them, right? And they always stay prioritized. Because ultimately the goal of this working group, right, is to keep the longevity of the project in mind.
Yes.
And improve the code quality of what is a code base in need, really.
That's right.
So we're here to pick up trash in addition to the improvements.
That's exactly right. If they go hand in hand, right? You can't improve it without cleaning it up as well.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the only person I've really chatted much regarding like the manifesto of this working group is like with Lucas. But I mean, like we've got like goals with kind of conformance and security. Really, I think once we finally have like config and flag and
Right.
like ultimately like having a central place to manage MTLS and delete it off, like that's all code cleanliness for security problem, really.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, that's like the first bullet point.
All right,
And
I'm gonna get kicked out of my room here. So
yes,
yes.
thank you guys for waiting for me, by the way. And then just the only other thing was Stuart has a request for design on the controller manager thing, which you guys may have chatted about. So
Can you move that to next week, and we can talk about that next week?
okay, yeah, I'll do that.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.